All righty. Hello. Welcome everyone to the Wonder Series. It's Wonder Wednesday, where we are here to ask the questions that you have been wondering about, hence the name. Whether it's something that has been bugging you for a long time or a new thing that's popped up, we're here to give you the honest, reliable, and unbiased information in those areas of health, wellness, personal development, and bringing a little fun into life. And sometimes all of them go together. So I'm really excited to talk to you today with my friend Joshua Margolis. Joshua is a fitness consultant. He is the founder of Mind Over Matter, Health and Fitness. Right now, the virtual workout world, essentially that comes to you. With this day and age, that's kind of what we're doing, right? But Joshua's fitness consultants bring virtual training via individuals and private groups into the comfort, convenience, and the safety of your own home. Their disciplines include personal training, yoga, Pilates, meditation. I could go on, the list goes on. Joshua, welcome, and thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, Denise. I appreciate it.
That's fun. I love your t-shirt. You can definitely tell what you do.
Yes. If I'm not branding myself, if I'm not my walking billboard, then who will be?
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. So, here on the Wonder Series, we are always answering questions. And, sometimes people think, oh, well, I know everything that I need to know about health. I know everything that I need to know about workouts and fitness. But workouts and fitness, they're similar, but they're not the same. And things have changed through the years. So tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got to creating Mind Over Matter. And let's start there.
Right. No, certainly. Look, health, fitness, and wellness has been a passion of mine for a lifetime. I think anyone that gets into this field, I think it has to be passion. It's a labor of love. Mm-hmm. It's you really do practice what you preach. I always grew up as the athletic kid. I played all these sports, and I wasn't necessarily the best kid on the team. I think people always think that because of what I do. I was always the kid that had to work hard. Mm-hmm. And I could always pick up a sport, but I had to really put the time, effort, and energy into it. I didn't walk on the court or on the field and become the best automatically. So I think that work ethic as a kid just stuck with me, and into college as well. And even post-college, colleges, I worked with a lot of collegiate athletes, designing more visualization and mental and exercises more for the mind than just the body. So I was always enthralled with the idea of, it's the cliche, 90% mental, 10% physical, but I'm a believer in that. I really am. There's a certain point, whether it's everyday fitness or professionals, where it's really not the physicality of it, it's how you approach it. And I started realizing that most of the people who start off on these fitness goals tend not to accomplish them. And why was that? What was missing? And a lot of the people that do it, as we know, are successful people, whether it's professionally, they have a great career, and they're relative captains of their industries, or from a personal life, but yet it can't transcend to fitness. What was missing in there? And the big thing that I found out was, like everything else, it's approach. We don't want to approach fitness as if it's something that we have to do. God knows we have enough in our world that we have to do. It is. Right. So if you approach it in that fashion, as I have to do this, or it's a task, or it's something that it's crossed up on your list, there's never going to be long-term success. There'll be short-term success, and short-term successes are important too. Examples of somebody has a trip to the islands coming up. They want to look good in a bathing suit. A high school, college reunion coming up. They want to show off how great they look to their classmates. A wedding or bar mitzvah. These are things that in the short term you can train for, to get in shape, to get where you want to be. But once you hit that goal, the bottom falls out. And you see that same person at the wedding or at the event. They're like, wow, you look fantastic. And then you see him 3 months later, and they're not saying the same thing anymore.
And you're like, oh, what happened to you?
So, and I think that is human nature. I think part of the idea of connecting with something in fitness is not just connecting to the discipline, but connecting to the person that provides it.
Mhm.
So I always give the analogy, we were talking before about, back in the day, we won't date ourselves, when we were in college, it wasn't always the class, but sometimes you just had that one professor that you fell in love with. You just
Mhm.
took the class because you had to take it, maybe it was an elective, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I do love agricultural science. Who would have thought? To use that example, but so it is. It's really making the connection with the person. So what I
Mhm.
try to do is not just myself, but with my team. I always say there's somebody for everybody. It's a fitness match.
Mhm.
It's finding somebody that you connect with. There's so many disciplines that are going to be effective for you. There's so many disciplines that you can get results with, but ultimately we want to have you connect with the person who's providing it.
Mhm.
I know for myself, my clients, I would say the number one thing they have, well, that they say they get results, of course, but it's fun. I make it fun. I try to make it lighthearted, even
Mhm.
if there's just pardon us, even if there's just a day where they don't have the strength or the energy, or maybe they didn't sleep well that night before or something like that.
Mhm.
You want to try to make light of something like that. You want to try to have fun with it. Even if there was a weekend where they went on a bender and they were drinking or they were eating, you want to kind of laugh and have a good time. So when we're
Absolutely.
doing workouts, I try to make things fun. I try to make it amusing. I try to make it appealing. I try to make everything almost like a game. When you were like a kid, when you would run around the playground, you're not
Mhm.
thinking, oh, I'm burning about 300 calories here. I'm doing 30 minutes of cardio. I did the monkey bar, so that's upper body. You're not thinking like that. You're just thinking you're enjoying it. So
You're playing.
that's ultimately what I'm trying to make a connection with my clients, somebody who's just enjoying the
Mhm.
actual time. And I think with anything else in life, the more we enjoy it, the more we're going to do it.
Absolutely. I think just the word workout, it's got the word work in it. And I think that's what kind of gives us that connotation that it has to be hard and it has to be specific, and it's got to be goal driven. And obviously we have a goal, but it doesn't always have to be I have to run 6 miles in 54 minutes. It doesn't
Right.
always have to be so goal oriented um to that degree. And I think because that takes the fun out of it.
Agreed. Agreed. And we have to, and everybody's motivated differently.
Yeah.
And you have to tap into motivation. We live in a culture right now where, everything is very statistically and numbers driven. And
Hmm.
everybody has the Fitbit, everybody has the watch. And sometimes that will motivate you to maybe work longer or go harder or
Yeah.
walk further or something along those lines. But sometimes you forget about just being in that moment.
Hmm.
It's just where you lose yourself in the discipline. We talk more about sports, playing activity. We were mentioning about fencing, about
Hmm.
some of your background. It's you want to lose yourself in that moment. And that's what runners talk about. Runners talk about they just their head goes someplace else. They
Yep.
just lose themselves in that moment. So I think there's something to be said about that.
And I think that's for me. I've run half marathons. My husband used to be a marathon runner.
Wow.
And what I always enjoyed, and people would always say to me, like, "Oh, you really like running?" And I'm like, "No, I don't really like running. I like the feeling of being outside and watching the birds flying around. And I love to
Right.
run outside. Living in Minnesota in the wintertime, we can't do that. So I end up
No.
on a treadmill for a lot less. I don't run very many miles on the treadmill. But then all of a sudden, that fun that I was having, it actually becomes work. It's not
Yeah.
fun anymore.
Yeah. No, I think you're hitting on the head. I'm a big believer in being outside, even now in the virtual world where I'm working with clients around the country in
Mhm.
this format. I'll ask them, what's the weather like? Like, just prop me up outside. Let's go. Do you have a backyard? Do you have a balcony? Do you have a porch? Let's just put me outside. Let's have you outside. And look, there's a line in the sand. Obviously, if it's 28 degrees, like we talked about,
Yeah, a
that might
little
be a
cold
little
here
bit
today.
much. Yeah. But it's always nice to do that.
Mhm.
Um, I it's funny what I do for a living, but I've never been a gym guy. I sometimes used to find the gym almost soul sucking. It would just take it out of you. It's all gray walls, just cardiovascular machines as far as the eye can see, just screens. I mean, look, we have screens, we need screens, but maybe have a little different, maybe have some green, maybe have some fresh air, maybe have the
Mhm.
birds. I think people lose sight of that. Plus there's, medicinal properties of being outside, the
Right.
vitamin D, the sunlight. And
Mhm.
I think we can all stand to gain a little bit from that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I don't love working out inside. It's a necessity, and it has a very different feeling when I go outside, whether I'm walking, running, riding my bike. I guess I do a lot of cardio outside.
Right.
That's
Right.
interesting to know. Um, but it's a different feel. Like it's more fun. I enjoy it. Like I look forward to doing it. I'll get my workout in today a little later this afternoon.
Good
And
for
I'm
you.
already kind of going, okay, well, I got up early. What am I thinking? What am I going to do? And it's a lot harder to really keep that mental state where you need it to be. So which you touched on.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right. No, it's huge too. And what you're talking to also about times of day, I think we all need to be honest with ourselves. Are we morning people or are we not morning people? Are we, and,
Mhm,
and there's no shame in that. I think there's something about knowing your body. We talk about our circadian rhythm and our
mhm,
body's ability with the elements and with the sun and rising and setting. I think you have to know what works for
mhm.
you. And then also you have to know logistically. Some people might want to work on the evening, but it's logistically impossible
Yeah.
to do that if you have a late work schedule. So I think it's a combination of knowing who
Mhm.
you are, and logistics do rule the day sometimes, don't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. I
Yeah,
think you've got that. That's a very good point because I know myself. I actually prefer to work out in the morning.
you do.
Um,
Okay.
my husband actually likes to work out at noon. Well, in the
Really?
real world, that doesn't work out very much.
Yeah, that's tough to do.
Right.
Okay, so he's an afternoon guy. It's funny now you can do that more.
Mhm.
Now that's open because of this
Right.
virtual, and we don't know where we're really heading, if we're heading back. I think we will head back to some semblance of
Mhm.
what we were, but they're always going to be, whenever change happens as general and sweeping as it happens in the world, there's some ramifications. So I think if that works for him, then by all means.
Yeah, and on the weekends it's hard because like I like to get up and get it, kind of get the workout part behind me. That's the piece, I'm mentally ready. Um, to do that. Now, if we're going to go for a bike ride or a walk or well, not a run. A run is to me is still a workout. But if we're going to go for a walk or a bike ride, I can do that anytime. That's fine. But it can be really difficult when one person wants to do one person wants to do the other. So when you talk about logistics, that's a very good point. For each person, if you have a partner, that kind of brings another level.
We have a lot of classes that we've done and we still continue to do it in New York City. And the classes that we have in the morning, our most recent classes was last summer. We do because my background as well is in prenatal postpartum fitness, so we have a stroller boot camp class that
Oh,
we do.
fun.
And we've played around with times over the years, and honestly the morning classes, the early morning classes, always had our highest turnout.
Mm,
It just is, because I think if you don't get it done sometimes right away, it just becomes increasingly more challenging to get it
yep,
done during the day. And these were, mom's responsibility of an infant,
sure.
and they probably weren't sleeping anyway. So
They were already up.
they're already up. So it's easy to come up. But I think that also, that's important to understand that too. Sometimes if you
Mhm.
get it done in the morning, there's a sense of you don't have to worry about it. You feel a sense of accomplishment. And then there's a sense of just feeling re-energized for your
Mhm.
day. So I think that's a big component.
Yeah, I would agree. So I mentioned earlier that, I seem to be doing a lot of cardio outside. And, as women, a lot of us on Living Healthy List are women and a few smart men, as I always say.
It's
Um,
good.
we tend to, whether we go to the gym or home at the house, we just tend to fall into the cardio mode. And, as women, maybe it's great when you're 20, but women, starting at, in age 40 and over, we know there's things changing. Our bodies are changing. Our needs are changing. Um, Help us understand where cardio fits in and where other things fit in as well.
No, this is great. This is kind of like an age-old debate of cardiovascular versus strength training. And I'm not gonna like give every little, because there's pros and cons to each, of course.
Sure.
And you made a good point, especially as we age. Look, a majority of my clientele are women 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Mhm.
And I can see the progression as time goes on. The one thing that we all have in common is time marches on for us all.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. If somebody has figured out how to reverse that, then retire, become a multi-billionaire, and live for another 100 years. But there is the effect that it has on the body. So there's certain things that are fact. Number one, as we get older, metabolic function slow. What used to work in your 20s and 30s does not really work in your 40s and 50s. Number two, the elasticity of your muscle decreases. I once heard the analogy of, as we age, our muscles are like rubber bands, but put that rubber band in a freezer and see what happens. It loses its elasticity. That's what happens as we get older. So these are two things that are fact. And this is what I will say about strength versus cardio. Cardio is important, but the number one factor that will burn fat on your body is muscle. How do you get muscle on your body? You don't do it by doing cardio. You do it by doing strength training. To oversimplify things, cardio burns calories. Strength training burns fat. That's putting it simplistically. Yes. Mm-hmm. So it's good. And look, cardio has a lot of internal functions, pulmonary, circulatory systems. Needed, definitely needed. But I always give the analogy of running on a treadmill, literally and metaphorically. But if you're doing that with your cardio, that's what you're doing. You're burning the calories, and then the next meal you're putting the calories back on. Mm-hmm. Strength training not only burns fat, strength training changes the shape of your body. So we always talk about, especially as we get older, it's not, and I know a lot of us like to use weight as the ultimate indicator of success. And I always joke, people, those of us, we put too much weight in weight. Weight is not the best factor. I love the idea of how the clothes fit. Mm-hmm. I think that's a better way, because sometimes I work with clients, maybe they lose 5 pounds, but yet all of a sudden their clothes fit differently. The waistline fits better. The fitted clothing shows off the physique better. So they might not be losing weight overall, but what's happening is they're losing fat and they're putting on some sinewy, lengthy muscle. So when in doubt, I'm always going to push for the strength training with my clients. Remember, the strength training will change the shape of your body. Strength muscle is the only thing that we know that burns fat, and the cardio burns calories, where strength training burns fat. The big thing, and we talk about this, is why do most people do cardio then? Because it's simple and it's mindless. Yeah, you just put that in, just run or just go. You don't have to think about it. Where strength training, you need a plan. You need at least an outline, a direction of what you want to focus on, what is important to you. It's a conversation that I have with new clients all the time, where literally they have to reveal to me their insecurities about their body. I said, look, this is for you. Tell me what you want to focus on. So you can do that. Cardio, you can't spot reduce. You can't point to an area of your body and say, I want to lose weight from here. Strength building, you can target an area of your body and try to sculpt and shape that. So as we get older, it's predicated much more so because, like I said, the losing elasticity of your muscles and your metabolic function slow down. So sometimes it can be a little bit more challenging, but it's worth it to at least work with somebody and devise a plan to have some strength.
I think having a plan is really important, because like I said, I'm like, ooh, what am I going to do today? I know yesterday I kind of did, full body, but I know I have videos from a coach that I've worked with in the past. And, I kind of go through them. I'm actually getting to a point where, I've done them so much that, okay, is this actually helping me, or am I just staying in the same place? I think that's another thing with, just watching videos. So talk about, watching videos compared to working with somebody.
Right. No, great point too. And I always say videos are great if you do them. Look, I
So
came up,
true.
and
So
again, to
true.
date myself, I came up in the DVD age. When I started in fitness, it was the DVD workouts, and people would order these DVDs,
I still
and
have
you
some.
get them, right? Of course, right? Who has it? We have it. It's part of our DVD library.
Mhm.
The first like 3-4 weeks, it's like you're doing it like it's your religion. You're doing it every day, and then all of a sudden, week 6 comes around, and maybe you're not doing it as much as you used to, or maybe you skip a workout here and there, and maybe you start getting bored, maybe you start getting burned out.
Mhm.
It doesn't have the same effect. Now, if you're one of these people that do it religiously all the time, good for you, but there is something called plateauing. Whereas if you do the
Yeah.
same movement over and over, you will have decreased results.
Mhm.
It will not, what worked in week 1 does not work in week 6.
Yeah.
Another pitfall to the video is there's not somebody there helping you with posture and alignment. So it's one of the more frustrating things as a trainer. Sometimes the effectiveness of an exercise is really determined by the slight switch in your body alignment.
Mhm.
The difference between getting 90% effectiveness of a bicep curl versus 50% could just be the way you're standing.
Mm.
So even virtual, all the time, I have my clients, do me a favor, stand sideways. Do me a favor, let me see the back view. Do me a favor, angle like this, and I try to give little cues.
Mhm.
Okay, for you have to focus on, you have to have your feet a little bit wider apart. You have to get your elbows to 90 degrees. So it's giving little mnemonic cues to remember. So that way, when you do the exercise,
Mhm.
you do it. Look, if you're doing a video and the exercise is easy, it might not be because the video is easy. It might be because you're not doing it
You're
the
doing it
right
wrong.
way. Yeah.
Mhm. It's interesting that you talk about posture. I've been recently working with one of my experts. She and I have been talking a lot about just standing, like the way you stand, and how, like, as for most women, we we kind of grew up. I know I did, walking around in heels all the time. I'm only 5 foot tall. I've like even my flat shoes for years have had a heel. And so like we always kind of fall forward because that's how the shoe is pushing you, is always making you lean forward. I notice it when I'm at the sink. I'm leaning in. Which if you're Sheryl Sandberg, she's all in for leaning in, but maybe not at the sink. But what I've been finding is standing with more of my weight on my heels as opposed to the balls of my feet.
Yeah.
My workouts, actually, my weights are heavier.
Right.
And I'm thinking, why are they heavier? Because they were all, when I was leaning forward, I wasn't able to get, I guess I wasn't getting that whole distance from, up to down because I was leaning
Right.
forward.
Right.
So there was
It's
less.
you're nailing it. That's really a big thing. It's always, whenever you teach somebody to do a squat, let alone any movement, you always say the weight should be in the heels and the butt. Not that you ever want to fall, but if you ever would fall, you would always fall backwards, because that's where the weight should be, is backwards in the seat and in the heel. So that's a good little cue to remember why you're doing that. And anytime you're standing too, you always want to have a little bend in your knees. You never want to lock out the knee. You just put
Mhm.
all that pressure onto the back. You want to always have a little bit of slight bend in the knees. And last but not least, the way you stand, you always should be hip width apart. And this is the difference between the way men stand versus how women stand. Women
Very
have a
true.
bigger hip angle. So therefore, their feet position should be slightly wider than a man who's much more narrow. So it's always good to keep in mind your own hip width, and that's
Mhm.
how your feet should be.
Which is hard because that's not ladylike.
No, it's
That's
not.
what we were taught when we were growing up.
Right, right.
And when we sit, we have our knees together and kind of squish into
Yeah,
it,
put you in the
into
ball. Yeah,
ourselves. Yeah,
right,
kind of scrunch into a ball. Where
right.
you're right, when you sit up properly, even same thing, just sitting with your knee, with your knees and your feet like hip width apart, as opposed to kind of squishing in.
Yeah,
It feels different, and you sit up taller. I'm doing
right,
this
right.
as I'm
Huge.
saying this. I'm
No,
making sure that I'm
look,
doing it right.
I'm already noticing. Honestly, posture is half the battle. It really is. It really
Mhm,
is. You sit, stand right way. Everything else will come along accordingly.
mhm. So I know one of the things we're all struggling with today is timing. On the one hand, we got a lot of time on our hands, but at the same time, if you have kids at home, if you're working, whatever it might be, as much time as we think we have, we really don't. So
No.
let's talk about workouts, and do they have to be an hour and a half long? Some of these programs, a 90-minute bike spinning class, I've taken them. They're fun every now and then, but I don't want to do that every week.
Right. This is right in our wheelhouse, because this is a philosophical shift in exercise pandemic. And it's something that at Mind Over Matter we've adopted. We changed all our hour workouts to half-hour workouts. We are now 30-minute workouts. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that outside of exercise. Number one is attention span. People tend to, at that 30, 40-minute mark, they just become disinterested. When you become disinterested, you're not putting as much effort and attention into the workout. You're not getting as much results. Number two, to your point, like an hour or 90 minutes, that's a chunk of time. It's hard to fit an hour in. When you have 30 minutes in, we talked before about logistics. Anyone can find 30 minutes in the day. Yeah. You can find 30 minutes somewhere to get it in. So logistically, it becomes easier. And then there's law of diminished returns. If you're not putting the same effort and energy in forth in the workout in the first minute that you do towards the end, you're not getting the same results. So think about buzzwords for exercise. You want to look more at frequency and intensity and less at duration.
Okay.
So think more frequent, think more intense, and think less about duration. I'd rather have a client that I see twice a week for 30 minutes each than see her once a week for an hour. I'd rather use that time more constructively. And also from a training standpoint, I know my workouts, they tend to be tougher in 30 minutes because I'm trying to squeeze everything in. So since we do a lot of strength training, the strength training exercises have less rest. So because of that, you're actually getting your heart rate elevated anyway, because there's much less downtime. So there's just a litany of reasons why the 30-minute window is something that we've adopted at Mind Over Matter. And I think is going to be a new approach, I'm hoping, in the fitness community.
I love that. I think it's great because, like you said, I mean, you can fit a half an hour in anywhere. Even if you're going to a gym or a class, you have to consider, drive time, and, there's downtime in that. So really, and I know this when I was going to the to the gym here before COVID, and I was enjoying it. I went twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, but it was on the other side of town. And now, granted, for those of you who live here in Rochester, I know it's not a very big town, but still, if you hit, it's kind of one of those towns. If you hit one light, you hit all of them across town. So before class, you'd have to leave, 20, 25 minutes before class and get there. So you're not kind of running in the door, and then class starts, and then you've got a cool down and a stretch, and then you've got to drive back. So really a 1-hour class is 2 hours.
Right.
So
it adds up. It does.
It does. It adds up and quickly. So how would you say, when it comes to strength training, how frequent is, since we're condensing to 30 minutes, is it still appropriate to do every day, every other day, twice a week? What's really helpful? Because we hear so many different things.
There was a book written years ago. I remember a client turned me on to it. It's called Younger Next Year. And I forgot the PhD, the physician that wrote it, but he had this theory that was oversimplified, but I like the idea of it. For every decades that you're alive, that's the amount of days per week you should be exercising. So if you're in your 20s,
good. I'm doing good then.
Okay, right.
Woo-hoo!
But it's to the point, and we talked before, as we get older, exercise becomes more pertinent. It does. Look, you should be exercising at any age, but if we remember, when you're in your 20s, if you didn't exercise for a couple of weeks, what's the harm? I mean, your body, at least aesthetically, is going to be fine. Starting in the 30s, your function starts slowing down. And then as we get even into the 70s and 80s, I joke when you're 80, I guess you got to do 1 day twice a week, twice in one day.
Twice in one day.
So yeah, I guess you have to do that. But there is a theory of, as we get older, it becomes more pertinent. I love, again, tapping into somebody and seeing what works best for their schedule. I just took on a new client, and I remember I had the conversation with her. I'm like, you tell me what's realistic for you. And she's like, I want my weekends free. I don't want to worry about weekends. I'm like, okay, so if that's the case, then I want Monday through Friday for you. I want you to pick 30 minutes a day, Monday through Friday. And what I'll do is I'm not working with that person necessarily every day, but I want them every other day. So we skip a day. I could say, what did you do? What did you do yesterday? And then based on what they did or didn't do in some cases, because let's be honest,
Yeah, things happen.
right. And it's right. I'm gonna be honest with ourselves. We'll tailor the workout to fit what they really need or what they missed. So, having me is a sense of accountability, but ideally, like I said, every decade you're alive, that's the amount of days per week you should be exercising for strength training.
Okay, so strength training, because I was going to say, so because there are some days when I'll go for a 4-mile walk, and
cardio you can do every day. You can do cardio every day, and I encourage it. Even if it's a walk. Then that counts. By the way, people ask, does walking count? Yes, it counts. Is it not as high of a calorie burn as some other days? Of course, but it still counts, and you should feel good that you get it in.
Yep. And you made a good point earlier about the calories, the calorie burn versus burning the fat, because that's something I've always kind of gotten kind of weird about. Like, oh wait, I've got to, I've got 432 calories. I'm not quite at 350 or 450. Right. I got to keep doing something. And then I'm thinking, okay, what am I eating? And it's something it's important, but if we're just considering calorie burn, we really are missing the point.
Agreed. Okay. And don't get wrapped up in the numbers. And besides that, from a bigger standpoint, and I know a lot about this, it breeds obsessive compulsive disorder. You don't want to, yes. You don't want to do it. And I'm not judging because I know firsthand. You don't want to get into that OCD side of it. You just enjoy it.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
So Joshua, tell us how people can connect with you and can work with you.
Right. So, since we're virtual now, we are open up to the world. Most of people the best way to get in contact with me is through the website, and that's Mind Over Matter NYC. We're a New York City based service. So that's the website. And you could always contact me directly through the website, Joshua at Mind Over Matter NYC. And when we have a new client come on, we just always have like a 15-minute consult with them. We talk about goal setting, short-term and long-term. We talk about injury history, any surgeries, injuries, bumps, bruises, broken bones. We try to outline that, any family history of things like heart diseases, cancers. And then we try to work on a schedule. Okay, what's going to fit your schedule? Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? All the stuff that we touched on. And then based on that, we'll start with a 30-minute virtual. And what's the jumping off point? And usually I like to work with my clients at least twice a week, sometimes 3. It all depends if they have the motivation to do it on their own. But the website is our greatest tool. And you can always get me social media as well. We're Mind Over Matter NYC on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm actually listed as Joshua Mind Over Matter Margolis. They literally have that as my middle name. It's Benjamin, by the way, but we'll go with Mind Over Matter. So yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me.
I love it. And I know you have, for our listeners, you have a really amazing free gift for our listeners.
Yeah. So, a lot of what I always, and this is a subject for another time, but building the body is building like a house. And when you want to build a house, you have to start with a strong foundation. Foundation is the core. Okay. The strength, your source of power, everything comes from the core. Now, I'm not saying we have to have flat stomachs or washboard abs. We always contrive for that, but we got to have strength and power in here. If we don't have it there, you can't build out. I love the idea of plank exercise, and that's what the video series that we have for everybody. You don't have to necessarily do a crunch to get an abdominal workout. Planks work fantastic. They lengthen the body. There's not as much pressure on spinal flexion in the back. And I like the idea of doing a plank series. So that's what the videos are. Just a basic sort of jumping off point for a plank and abdominal workout.
I love it. It's going to be great. I've watched the video, so I'm really excited. And we'll have the link for everybody with this video. You'll be just look in the notes and you'll have it there. So definitely grab that, start where with the foundation, and then connect with Joshua at Mind Over Matter NYC. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you. This has been so much fun.
A lot of fun. Denise, thanks for having me. It was a blast. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll definitely be chatting again soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm Denise. Stegall, the CEO and curator at Living Healthy List, and your host for the Wonder Series. I will be back with a guest, my next guest, next week on Wednesday. We'll see you then. Till then, healthy living, happy life. Bye, everyone.